Howdy folks, and welcome back to another episode of Mingles with Jingles, episode 229. Mingles with Jingles, of course, is advert free. Thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. 229 episodes, one a week. I've skipped a couple of weeks here and there, but that's still well over 4 years I've been doing this now. Little statistic for you. I got curious and I started digging around. In the lifetime of my YouTube channel, Mingles with Jingles alone has enjoyed 12.5 million minutes of video watched. And that sounds like a lot. Hell, it is a lot, who would be kidding? But just to put that into perspective for you, I did some more digging for statistics, and just in the last 28 days alone, the channel as a whole has had 42 million minutes of video watched. That's a lot of time wasted watching YouTube videos when you could have been doing something useful. Not that I'm complaining, of course. I started digging around for some more statistics. Some of this is really, really surprising. My top 10 video playlists of all time. Now this is very surprising. It's not World of Tanks. Remember, for my first, 2 years, all I did was World of Tanks. And while I do have 2 World of Tanks playlists in my top 10 playlists, even if you add their watch time and views together, they still don't equal. They come close, but even added together, they still don't equal what is apparently my most popular playlist. Who can guess what it is? It's not Mingles with Jingles, I can tell you that for nothing. Mingles with Jingles is actually in 6th place overall as playlists go. World of Warships. It's only been out 2 years. So, yeah, I was amazed, absolutely amazed. My World of Warships playlist, which contains 219 videos and has only been up since March 2015, so it's nearly 3 years, not 2, has received more minutes watched and more views than the 532 videos combined in World of Tanks playlists 3 and 4. And while that's impressive in and of itself, don't forget, those World of Tanks videos have been up 2 years longer than my very first World of Warships video. I did not see that one coming. Mingles with Jingles is my 6th most popular playlist. There was another interesting statistic to do with Mingles with Jingles. Most people only watch half of every Mingles with Jingles video that I upload. In fact, the very, very first episode of Mingles with Jingles, which wasn't even called Mingles with Jingles, it was just called Q&A with the Mighty Jingles, in which I asked you guys for suggestions as to what I should call the video series. Only 21% on average of that video was watched. That's the funny old thing about Mingles with Jingles. It's by no means my most popular video series, but the people that do watch it really seem to like it. But still, average watch time for an episode of Mingles with Jingles it hovers around the 50% mark. Most people just don't watch the last half of an episode of Mingles with Jingles. I mean, I know a lot of you do, because I see people in the comments responding to things that I've mentioned in the last half of an episode of Mingles with Jingles, but the majority, they just don't stick around long enough to find out what it is I'm talking about in the second half of an episode. Technically, that means I should be able to, 10 to 15 minutes into a video, just start reading from the phone book. And, most people would never know. I'll have to try that. Actually, no, I'm not. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that. Well, maybe it'd be... No, I'm not going to do that. It might be funny once, but no. What you should be doing, of course, when you're browsing your channel analytics and you're seeing statistics like this, what you should be doing is thinking, well, how can I engage the audience more? How can I make them watch more than 50% of the video? And you should be doing things like leaving them on cliffhangers halfway through the video, saying, and guess what happened next? If you want to know what happened next, come back at the end of the video and I'll tell you. That's what, if you take YouTube seriously and you want to grow your channel, this is what they recommend you should be doing. And I can't be bothered with any of that. It's not that I don't take it seriously, but I'm not going to trick people into watching my videos. That's just too cheesy. And that's all that things like that are. They're just tricks. You try and trick people into thinking that the video is more interesting than it actually is. And marketing people will stand up and bore you to death, telling you how effective tactics like that are. But I have an alternative suggestion. Instead of trying to trick people into thinking that your video is interesting, and this never seems to be something that marketing people suggest, make your video more interesting. Yes, you see? I know, right? Yeah, who'd have ever thought of that one? I suppose if I'm going to at least try to take this sort of information seriously, the one thing that I should make sure I do in future, starting now, is if I have something that's actually quite important to say, I should probably say it in the first half of an episode of Mingles with Jingles. So, bearing that in mind, while you're all still awake, and you haven't yet been lulled into sleep by my dulcet tones, let's get the important stuff out of the way. Tankfest this year. I will be going, of course, and you may have already heard the news. If you haven't, then I'm delighted to be the one to tell you that Tankfest has some very special guest armour this year. A fully operational IS-3 will be strutting its stuff around the arena at Tankfest. It's arriving at the Tank Museum thanks to the Belgian Army Museum, I believe. The tank was given to Belgium by Russia, obviously, on the condition that it be accepted by the Belgian Minister of Defence. So, okay, is that it? Yeah, no problem. And the Russians were very, very generous. It's not just a fully operational and working IS-3. Apparently it also arrived with all of the kit and equipment. Uniforms, maps, binoculars, radios, everything. Everything that should have been in and on the IS-3 was in and on the IS-3. So that's going to be great. And I appreciate that everybody from former Eastern Bloc countries right now are going, it's just an IS-3. I mean, there's thousands of them around here. And yeah, I know, but I haven't had the privilege yet of visiting an Eastern Bloc country where you've got these things on every street corner. I don't even think the Tank Museum doesn't even have an IS-3, let alone one that works. I mean, they have an amazing collection of armoured vehicles, but their Soviet Warsaw Pact Eastern Bloc collection is a little on the slim side. I mean, I know they have a KV-1, they have an Su-85, T-26, I think that's about it. Well, they've got some of the modern vehicles as well, T-72, no T-64 obviously, that thing was super top secret. They don't have a T-80, they don't have a T-90. They've got a couple of T-54, T-55s. Don't think they have a T-62. Although they do have a few bits of T-62s lying around, but I think that's about it. Oh, and they've got a very, very well preserved T-34-85 as well, but I think that's about it. Which is very, very surprising, because they do have an amazing collection, but it's mostly the Western vehicles. So, very, very excited to be seeing not just an IS-3 for the first time at Tankfest this year, but a fully operational IS-3 showing off in the arena. Speaking of the Tank Museum, I'm also going to Tiger Day this year. Well, I'm going to the first Tiger Day that they're doing this year on the 28th of April. Tiger Day is proving so popular that they're starting to run it twice a year now. So the first one this year is on the 28th of April, and the plan at the moment is that I'm going along for the afternoon session of Tiger Day, but I'm planning on getting there earlier in the morning, and the Tank Museum are going to be doing the same thing, although I do need to confirm this with them, so maybe I shouldn't be mentioning this yet. It'll be fine, I'm sure. They're going to be setting up the same sort of deal that they did for me at Tankfest last year, where they set up a tent probably in the same place outside the entrance to the museum, where I can spend a couple of hours in a semi-organised environment meeting you lot. So if anybody's planning on going down to the Tank Museum for Tiger Day, and I do recommend it, because I mean any reason to go to the Tank Museum is a good reason, and Tiger Day is one hell of a good reason to go to the Tank Museum. But if you are going to Tiger Day this year on the 28th of April, don't know the exact timings as yet. I'm going to be busy from 11 o'clock on, so a couple of hours before that, maybe from 9 in the morning. I'll be there at the Tank Museum. Feel free to, I don't know, maybe, he said, plugging his t-shirt shop. Get your Jingles merchandise signed. Link down below in the video description. Or, just stop, say hello, and have a quick chat. So, that's Tiger Day. Hope to see you there, 28th of April, at the Tank Museum in Bovington. Right, next up, time to read some of the messages that you lot have been sending me. And I really did like this one. I kind of deserved it because of the mockery that I lavished on the Royal Air Force last week. But this isn't from somebody who's in the Royal Air Force. This is from somebody who isn't in any Air Force yet, although he plans to be. And how can I put this? This is hard for me because, as a 22-year Royal Navy veteran, I've got a Frenchman taking the piss out of me. No, really. This is from Tahiti Looping. Hello, dear Jingles. As a future officer, he's not even in the French Air Force yet. Right? As a future officer of the French Air Force, I would like to raise your attention to the fact that 1. Sailors are just a bunch of guys stuck on a big dumb fat steaming turd of a tin can, usually referred to as a boat. 2. The Air Force beats the Army, which beats the Navy. And 3. The French Army beats the British Army. Best regards, a non-upset French almost pilot and officer in the French Air Force. So, yeah, I suppose you could argue that after last week's episode of Mingles with Jingles, I was about due for some stick from the Air Force, but this guy is 1, not even in the Air Force, and 2, he's French. Come on. How low do I have to stoop? Although, you've got to give him credit. He's got the sense of humour. So he's going to do very, very well in the French Air Force. He definitely understands the military sense of humour. Speaking of the military sense of humour, I need to find this email. Where is it? Oh, here it is, from James Wilkinson. Mighty master of the salt mines. Oh, that'll be me. I'm writing to you from the depths of Salt Shaft 432, level 918, Tunnel 2. I am a loyal member of the Jingles Royal Salt Mine Brigade, and I support you with a monthly pittance on Twitter. I have noticed that when you acknowledge those that give you real live money, you only mention those who do so on Patreon. Do we who support you financially on Twitter not matter? Just curious. And no, I don't want to start an account on Patreon to support you. I have enough of a digital footprint as it is. I do love your videos, and I'm always impressed by your historic knowledge. I'm a retired US Army NCO, so I appreciate your candid comments on the military. Don't change and sail on. Very respectfully, Jimmy Wilkinson. Jimmy, you will be very proud to know you got me. I fell for it. Jimmy's message is mostly complete bullshit. I support you with a monthly pittance on Twitter. I thought, what? Nobody's been giving me money on Twitter. Is that a thing? Can you do that on Twitter? I actually started investigating. And after a good 10 minutes of fruitlessly trying to find out on Google just what the hell was going on, and since when have you been able to pay a monthly fee to support somebody on Twitter, the penny finally dropped. I suppose I should have been alerted to the fact that he claimed to be impressed by my historic knowledge. I mean, there's a warning sign if ever I heard one. If that wasn't evidence that he was bullshitting me, I don't know what was. But it was the very next line that clinched it. I'm a retired US Army non-commissioned officer. Oh, God. Yeah, Jimmy, well done. Well played, Jimmy. You got me. I should have seen it coming. It is, of course, bullshit. You can't support people on Twitter the way that you can, for example, on Patreon. Jimmy knows that. And he got me. Well played, Jimmy. Well played. You bastard. They refer to this as an easy in the Royal Navy, by the way. We're constantly trying to pull easies on each other. Saying the most ridiculously stupid things and just seeing who takes you seriously. My one and only excuse for falling for it is that I'm just out of practice. It's been 7 years since I retired from the Navy. I mean, I try to keep my hand in by pulling easies on Rita, but it's too easy. I mean, civvies just don't get it. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. She's starting to get it, but it's taken her 3 years. Right, so yeah, that's a shit excuse, but it's the only one I've got. Well played, Jimmy. Well played. Actually, while we're on the subject, because the vast majority of you lot are going to be civvies as well, and you're going to have no experience of this sort of thing, I should probably give you some examples. There are some old, tried and tested easies that you pull on newbies who join the ship and have never been to sea before. For example, you're working partnership on the upper deck, doing ship's husbandry. You've got one of the noobs with you. You're, I don't know, chipping away old paintwork and repainting, you're greasing guardrails, whatever. And then you, oh no, I don't have the right tools. Tell you what, Skin, do me a favour, pop down to the buffer's shack, see one of the Killick seaman specialists, or the chief boatswain's mate himself, and get me a long stand. So your noob cheerfully trots down to the buffer's shack, pops his head in through the door and says, "Excuse me, buffer, I've been sent down by my partnership to get a long stand." And the buffer will say, "Right, oh, just wait there." And then he disappears for a stand easy. Goes to his mess, has a cup of tea, maybe he reads the newspaper, does the crossword, gives you about 20 minutes, comes back, and was that stand long enough? So it's just one example of the countless numbers of easies. Oh, my particular favourite is the bunk light bill. This one's always good, because you can keep this one going for weeks if necessary. The sleeping arrangements in a warship's mess deck, probably best described as bunk beds. And each bunk, depending on how modern the ship is, comes with this thing called a punkaluva, which is like a very, very basic air conditioner, and a bunk light, which is just a light above your pillow. So when you climb into your rack for the night, you can shut the curtains, turn your bunk light on, the curtains are shut, you're not going to disturb anybody, and you can read a book or, you know, whatever. Well, anyway, you tell all of the new arrivals in the mess deck that there's a bunk light bill that has to be paid every month. You have to pay for the electricity to power the bunk light. You would be amazed at the number of people who fall for this. But the best part is that before the end of the month, what you do is every time they're not in the mess deck, you go to their bunk and you just turn their bunk light on. And you watch them lose their mind when they come back to the mess deck for lunch or for a stand easy or whatever, and realise some bastard keeps leaving their bunk light on. They're like, "You arseholes, who keeps leaving my bunk light on? I've got to pay for this. I'm not made of money." And so they turn it off, and then the second they leave the mess, you quickly turn it back on again. You can keep this going for weeks until the end of the month, when they finally realise that they don't actually have to pay a bunk light bill. So, yeah. Well, you know, what can I say? It's you have to make your own entertainment when you're on a ship. But anyway, those are examples of easies. And like I said, it's been 7 years. And just practicing on Rita is really no practice at all. It's far too easy. So I'm out of practice. That's my excuse. And that's the reason why I fell for Jimmy's easy. It's the only excuse I have. It's not a very good one, but I'm sticking to it. Next up, I have to give a shout out. Actually, this is going to be kind of awkward. I really do have to give a shout out. And a big thank you as well. To one person in particular, but at the same time I have to ask them to stop. Mighty McGrain, you know who you are. Mighty McGrain he's incredibly generous. He keeps gifting me premium ships. Just this week, he gifted me HMS Duke of York, the premium Tier 7 British battleship. He's also responsible for the Imperator Nikolai, the Russian premium battleship that I also own. He's incredibly generous, but this must be costing him a fortune. And, I mean, you know, it's nice to be gifted free stuff. I certainly didn't object to all of the Santa gifts that everybody sent my way over Christmas. You guys basically paid for the grind to the Missouri. All of that free XP that I converted was mostly paid for from the gold that was contained in those Santa gift boxes. And every time I got a duplicate ship, I got the gold value of the ship, as well as another 10-point national captain. So, fantastic. But a Santa gift box is pennies. I mean, it's easily affordable. Doesn't matter where you live or how much you earn. When somebody's sending tier 7 and 8 premium ships to you, this is... I mean, it's appreciated. This is what I mean. It's kind of awkward, because I don't want to appear unappreciative of your generosity, because you have been incredibly generous. It is very, very much appreciated, but at the same time, there's been so much that at this point I'm starting to feel like I'm taking advantage of you. I'm feeling guilty now every time I see an email from you or from the Wargaming premium shop saying you have a new gift waiting, and when I see your name, it's kind of awkward. So please stop. I mean, I know, first world problems. I mean, this is a really weird position to be in, and I do not want to appear unappreciative of your incredible generosity, but it's getting to the stage now where I really do feel like I'm taking advantage of your generosity. So while I do appreciate it, please stop. Never thought I'd be in the position where I'm asking people to not send me things. But, here we are. What a time to be alive. So, yeah, Mighty McGrain, a shout out and a big thank you, but at the same time, stop, please. Start spending your money on yourself. I got another email last week from deepest, darkest South Africa. I used to live there, by the way. When I was 12 years old, we emigrated to South Africa. Well, I actually lived in South Africa for 1 year. And then my father got a better job in Swaziland, but we still went to boarding school in South Africa. So 4 years in total spent either living or going to school in South Africa. So I do tend to pay attention whenever I see an email from a South African email address. This was from Nicholas Moraes. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. I don't want to just call you Dave. He's coming to Tiger Day this year. Well, he's seriously considering it, he and a friend. But not the April Tiger Day. He's coming to the September one. The thing is, the Tank Museum haven't announced the dates for Tiger Day 2 this year. And the Imperial War Museum at Duxford are also doing their Battle of Britain air show in September this year. And it would be a real shame if those two events coincided. So Nicholas has asked me to flex my muscles at the Tank Museum to use my influence to ensure that the Tank Museum don't put Tiger Day on the same weekend as the Imperial War Museum's Battle of Britain air show. Nicholas, I am flattered, but I think you seriously overestimate the amount of influence that I have with the staff of the museum. I'll certainly mention it to them, though, because, well, it would not be in their best interests to be putting Tiger Day on at the same time as another major historical military show. You don't want to force your potential audience to have to choose between the two events. So I'll certainly mention it to them. It might not even be something they've considered. But thank you for sending the message, and thank you for reminding me about the Battle of Britain air show at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford. I think it's been 5 years since I went to see it, so you never know your luck, I might see you there. Finally this week I've got a message from Robert Pike, and well, this one's kind of serious. Well, actually, I'll just read you the message. You can make your own mind up. This isn't the first time somebody's expressed this kind of sentiment to me. Dear Mighty Jingles, I've been wanting to write you for quite a while, but I've hesitated to do so, not wanting to offend you. I'm far too old and ugly to get offended by anything somebody puts in an email, Thomas. Sorry, Robert. I just read his name and I got it wrong already. I have watched and loved your videos for umpteen years now, and I look forward to them as a daily treat. 2 of my grandsons come over twice a week while Mum and Dad work. Before playing World of Tanks or World of Warships with Grandpa, the boys want to watch the Mighty Jingles, Quickie Baby, and Ranzar. I'm sorry, but I won't let the boys watch you anymore because you've gotten a trifle too salty. I want them to laugh and enjoy your broadcast without having to explain, Granby, what's a douchebag? Yeah. Fair enough. I know it's the way the world talks now, and they'll hear it soon enough, but the boys do miss you and would love to listen to you again. You were a natural entertainer. Oldest grandson is 10, the other is 6. It's fun for me to watch them laugh at something they just did and watch you laugh and comment on it. Anyway, I wish you well, and always a thumbs up. Sincerely and with the utmost respect, Robert Pike. Yeah, that's a tough one. first of all, thank you. And sorry. This isn't the first time somebody's sent me a message along these lines. The first time was actually... This was bizarre. I cannot remember her name. But she's an outside broadcast reporter for BBC News. Polly something. I can't remember the name. I could look it up, but I can't be bothered. Exactly the same thing. I thought it was amazing. This was about 2 years ago, and I'm getting tweets from this person on the television. I thought, wow, they want to do an interview. No. Her kids watched my YouTube channel, but she just wished that I didn't swear quite as much. It's tough. I mean, I don't want to censor myself. In that particular case, I recommended that she get her kids to watch Quickie Baby instead, because Quickie Baby is completely family friendly. I do get a bit salty, but it's who I am. You may not believe it, but I have actually toned it down massively. You wouldn't believe the way I used to speak when I was actually in the Navy. But at the same time, you've got a good point. I mean, it's one thing swearing when you're just, in a natural conversation, but I'm sitting here in front of a microphone at a desk. I don't have a script. I pretty much just rabbit on about whatever it is I want to talk about, but I have the option, I have the luxury of being able to stop the recording, go back, cut a bit out, edit it, or just rephrase the way I've said something. I don't have to swear, and yet I choose to leave it in. The thing is, you don't have to agree with me, but I do believe that sometimes a really well-chosen and timed curse can express so much more than more flowery language. And yet at the same time, I can quite clearly remember, maybe this is something to think about, I can quite clearly remember that when I was in basic training, when I joined the Navy in 1989, and I was doing my basic training, where they teach you how to dress yourself and do your laundry and march and salute and all that sort of stuff, my drill instructor never once swore at us when we were on the parade ground. Never. And that is the complete opposite of what people expect from a drill instructor. But he humiliated us all the same. He just had such an amazing way with words. He could reduce you to tears without ever shouting at you or swearing at you. The man was a genius. And maybe it would be better if I tried to be more like that. It's certainly something to think about. Anyway, thank you, make sure I get your name right, Robert, for sending that email in. You've definitely given me something to think about. See what everybody else thinks in the comments. Where do you stand on this issue? Foul language, is it never appropriate? Is it sometimes appropriate if used with care, or do you just not really care either way? Let's see what you think. So yeah, thank you, Robert Pike, for sending that message in, and I do apologise, but we'll see. I may change, because you do raise a very good point. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. So bearing in mind that according to my YouTube analytics, only 50% of you are still watching at this point. We'll see how many of you respond in the comments to the point raised by Robert Pike there. But that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.